Hello, Janice.
Hi, Anthony.
Today we're going to talk about reasons not to make a loved one the executor in your estate plan. We've talked about this before, but I actually stumbled across an article that covered, I think it was titled, 2 Big Reasons Not to Make a Loved One the Executor of Your Estate, which is like, wow, this is exactly what we talk about. So we'll review that and sort of flesh it out and add on to it to give even more perspective on why that might not be a great idea. Okay. So first, the article talks about that being an executor can be emotionally difficult.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about this often. It's something that it's a duty or a role that begins almost immediately after passing, after the death of your loved one. So as you can imagine, you have the shock and the emotional grieving that you're dealing with, but then you have this long list of things that need to be done now, immediately. Yeah.
Right away. Yep.
So even in the most simplest of probates, that's just a lot of work to deal with when, and so soon after passing, like after a loved one passes away.
Yes. When you're still processing the grief of it and you're not even, some people have barely processed when they have to start this process. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then if you have a somewhat complicated probate, not necessarily one of those worst nightmare ones, but a somewhat complicated one, then you might be navigating family and friend relationships. There might be some sort of politics involved. I don't know if that's the best word.
Yeah.
And this can be tough if you are actually friends and family members with all those folks. If this person's asking a lot of questions about money, or this person is saying, I'm broke, help me out, or if this person's saying, hey, how come cousin this person got this much, and you are related to all of them, it becomes very delicate and very emotionally draining. Or we've seen it over and over again.
Absolutely. And we've seen it happen right away, not just into the process, but very quickly, unfortunately.
And then if the probate is particularly complicated, if it's very dramatic, I don't think I need to explain anymore. That is just going to be so burdensome and so draining on your loved one, who is, again, mourning and already dealing with potentially like friend and family politics. And then if you have legal battles or an audit or anything else, it's just going to be very, very tough.
Yes.
All right. So the article goes on to explain the second big reason not to make a loved one the executor of your estate is that being an executor is very long and time consuming. We've talked about this again and again.
Yeah. And again.
And again.
Listen, it is just long. Take our word for it.
I think some folks have the impression that it's a few weeks or even months. It's late, especially lately, especially over the past few years. It is definitely a year or years to get this completely done. Yeah.
Correct.
I think folks don't realize that many of these tasks must be done in person. An executor cannot delegate many of their powers by power of attorney. An attorney can help with some of them, but a lot of them have to be done in person. Not just by the executor himself, but the executor must walk into a bank branch or a brokerage bank and do it face to face.
Yes.
This is not great if the executor lives elsewhere, has a busy family or work life of their own. And so we've talked about this before, why those are very common reasons why folks end up hiring a professional executor. So lastly, we'll add a few things that ideally your executor will know or skills he or she will have. And this might... Your loved one, you may not have loved ones who fit this profile and therefore might want to hire a professional instead.
Yes.
So first, they really need to have a good handle on legal issues and risk. An executor is personally liable for any mistakes they make during the probate process. Any asset valuations, any asset purchases and sales, any tax complications, failure to pay any debts. Any of that goes wrong, the executor is personally liable out of their own pocket.
Yep.
They will come after, or potentially, it doesn't happen often, but they can come after your personal home, bank accounts, brokerage accounts. Yep. So a good executor must have a solid understanding of what's going on and the risks involved in their decisions.
Yes. And even if they don't mean to, it could still happen, right? Even if it's not malicious, right?
There are a lot of tax issues when you're trying to close an estate. the IRS and the state taxing authorities, they know that when somebody is reported as passing, okay, so this is our last chance to wring every last cent out of that Social Security number out of that tax ID number.
Like,
so
this is it.
Yeah, they come after it. This is not something like, we have 6 years or 3 years to audit them. They know that this is it, and they pay attention.
Very much so, yes.
Your executor, your loved one may not have the background or skills to just generally manage assets. There will often be real estate, financial assets, brokerage accounts, maybe something esoteric like derivatives or options, or something even more unique like a small business, collectibles, or as we talk about often, Bitcoin.
Exactly.
If your loved one doesn't have the existing skill set to deal with these, please don't count on them to teach it to themselves while they're mourning. I mean, that's just a tough ask. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then lastly, a lot of folks think, well, as long as my spouse, nephew, or son, whatever, my loved one surrounds themselves with the right people, that's fine, right? And yes, that's an interest. Okay. Surrounding themselves with the right people is definitely important. They need a good team around them, lawyer, CPA, real estate broker, and so forth.
Sure.
That's not quite enough. I mean, everyone has different incentives, so you might not always be getting the best advice. And none of them are personally liable like you are, or like your executor is. So the buck stops with the executor. You want to make sure that person knows what they're doing. They can't just say, well, my lawyer told me to do it. It doesn't matter.
Right. Is the lawyer versed in this too? We've talked about that before.
Great point.
Could it be a family lawyer that's just learning probate as he's working on your matter because he just happens to be a friend throwing it out there? So yes, you could have the right people, but are they the right people?
That's a great point. We've worked with many brilliant CPAs who had never done a 706 or had done very few or a 1041, which are different types of estate tax returns. So they may be rock stars when it comes to doing your 1040 or your business tax returns, but you have to know that what they don't know, right? You have to be able to recognize that.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Which, and even in the article, they talk about working with a professional for professional executorship, which is kind of interesting. That's becoming a thing now that 5 years ago, people didn't understand was actually out there. So I always recommend Anthony's book, How to Hire an Executor, for a professional executorship, not family. Yeah.
You make a great point, Janice. The more the word gets out, the more people we speak to and explain what we do, people are often thrilled. Like, holy cow, I didn't know this existed. This is exactly what I need. So for anyone who fits that profile, reach out to us. Let us know. We're happy to help. Otherwise, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks, Janice, as always. And we will talk soon next time. Bye now.
Soon.